day 2. I hope everybody enjoyed last evening and the opportunity to unwind after our full day of sessions. And hopefully you all slept well and feel re-energized for today. Yesterday we called it Reflection Day, setting the stage for what's possible when we think boldly and how we partner with the field. So today we're going to move from ideas into action. So over the next period of time, we're going to look more closely at JCC Association's evolving framework of services to explore how these 3 centers would help us in delivering on that vision. So afterwards, VC is going to help us lift our sights toward our next steps in the process to ensure that we all leave together aligned, focused, and ready to carry this work forward. And then after our session, we're going to have a break until the official opening of ProCon, which will begin at 1 p.m. So that's when we'll begin the celebration of connection, collaboration, and what it means to lead as one movement. And I want to remind everybody, please wear your badges throughout today and for whatever period of time you're staying with the conference over time. So it is important for security. So, we all good? Ready? Yeah. Mr. Bryan.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me in the back of the room? Yes. Okay, fantastic. All right, so yesterday afternoon, as I was summarizing the materials that we offered, I talked about our discussion as an overview of the process of the strategy framework. Today we're getting into the content, okay? And I thought that before we look at like all of the different services and capabilities we imagine in each of the 3 centers, to remind ourselves of what we're trying to accomplish. So I pulled Barack's, I don't know if we can call this the bouncing ball slide, but what JCCs are poised to do slide describing the impact that we can have, we hope we have on the North American Jewish community, and also our mission, grounding the services and capabilities that we're about to review in the purpose of our work. Okay? So while we're diving into the depths of what we're doing in talent development and peoplehood and innovation, obviously, I don't want us to lose sight of the mission and why we do the work that we do. Has anyone not heard of the 3 centers before this board meeting? Don't be bashful. Anyone? Okay. All right. Good. This is obviously the architecture that we're gonna, or the skeleton that we'll start to scaffold around. Excuse me. And I hope that you'll agree as we go through this. These provide helpful points of focus and clarity around the role of the association. So I'm going to walk us through a set of services for each of the 3 areas. But before I do that, I'd like us to keep several things in mind. Number 1, in my opinion, what we're about to review is directionally correct. It is not like 100.000% accurate. We will not be posting this like to our external website or sending this to the printers to create new brochures after today. We're not at that stage. In fact, I would argue that we only need to be as detailed as is necessary to get 2 things done. Number 1 is figure out the team that will be necessary to deliver the work. And number 2 is figure out how much is it going to cost approximately so we can get out telling our story, okay? So as we go through this, the takeaway is remember where we are in the process, and that this is, we're like 80% there in terms of our definition. We are not trying to lock in at 100% clarity. When I show you all of the services, one of your reactions, one of your top 3 reactions, if we were doing this like Family Feud style, one of the top 3 answers on the board will be, that is a lot. You are right. It is a lot. we will need more resources to do the work. Some of those resources will need to be on the team. I think about that juxtaposition of trends that I mentioned yesterday. I don't know that we've ever had any more paying stakeholders or members, and I'm not sure the staff has ever been any smaller. Okay? We're going to have to add to the team, but we don't have to do it all on our own. We have the opportunity to work with partners and colleagues and friends to deliver these services to the field. Okay? Last, I don't know if you're like me, but a lot of times when I see lists like this, I'm like, hold on a second, how's this gonna work for my community? And does this match the needs of what my team back home needs? And that is a fair litmus test. I invite you to use that test, but also keep in mind that there is a wide variety of J's out there with a whole host of different needs and preferences. So think about what we're going to review, not only from your local hat, excuse me, but your continental hat as well. Is that fair? Okay. Any questions about the context of what we're going to go through? That makes sense. All right. Batting lead off, the Center for Talent Development. So in simple terms, from my perspective, this center is intended to help us do two things. Number one is develop the professional and lay leadership that we have now. And number two, prepare us for the future. Create a pipeline of lay and professional leaders that will enable us to be strong for years to come. So for each of these centers that we'll go through, the first slide that I'm going to show you is what exists today. I am not making any judgments about what exists today. I'm sure I've missed some smaller things. I don't think I and we have missed any big things, but this is just our starting point. Okay. So as you look at these bullets in a second, I'm going to invite you to ask any questions you may have about programs that may be unfamiliar to you. Okay. But as we start to look at this center, I'll tell you from my discussions with the field throughout the stakeholder paradigm, excuse me, I get choked up talking about talent. Throughout this stakeholder paradigm, and in all the planning work, strategic planning work I've done with the field, I would wager this is the center where the field is hungriest for more. They're feeling how the association's work in this center can move the needle for them in their local communities. Of course, all three are that way. We love all three of our kids. But there's just, I think, a special desire from the field to move forward with these. So as you read these bullet points, any questions around the programs or the capabilities you see here? You're unfamiliar with one, or you didn't realize we were still doing something? Yeah, Jay.
Can you just, and I don't want to take up a ton of time, but things like SEDAC, like, can you provide a little bit of insight what some of these things are? Just flip notes, quick one.
Yeah, some, and some I'm going to have to phone a friend. So we're talking about ZEDEC. Brock, can you describe that a little bit?
SEDEC is a program that we do with Repair the World. They got a major grant to do social services, work in communities. So we created a fellowship so JCC professionals can amplify Repair the World's work. So they provide the grant for the staffing, but it's a strategic partnership with Repair the World.
And they fund it?
They fund it.
Ruth?
Hi. What about the chaplain conference for JWB, where they bring
So-
set in a different place?
So we, one thing, it's interesting, so really everything we do, it's about talent development across all three centers. It's all about helping people grow. We have all that stuff in the Center for Jewish
Got
Peoplehood.
it. Okay. Thanks.
So some stuff you'll be like, or Tom just goes, where's the para fellowship? It's in the Center for Jewish Peoplehood.
Got it. Okay.
So
Thank you. What happened to the Esther Blair program?
It's
what?
it hasn't been You're gonna see that coming next.
Oh, okay.
So there's gonna be a lot that you're wondering. I would raise your hands, but also kind of like go through the process a little bit. But if you have no idea, like Jason, like what
Yeah, I
is
just didn't know what
set
that was, yeah.
up, that's a fellowship we do, and we can anticipate not needing too far. There's many strategic partners out there that want to work with us, that we can have lots of these types of fellowships in partnership with other organizations, based on leveraging their area of expertise.
I just had a question about Marin. I heard about it a lot yesterday.
Merit is our team fellowship that we take 20 outstanding young, it doesn't have to be young professionals working with teens. They tend to be younger professionals.
It's not a program for teens, it's a program for people working with
Correct.
teen learners.
Steve?
I don't think we have to do it now, but I think it would be helpful to put a number next to each one as to how many people it impacts.
Oh, that's
Like the fellowship is a small number as compared to J Summit.
Yeah.
Or Sheva Center being 183 preschools.
Yeah, we can do that.
Exactly.
Right? Shocking that you asked for numbers.
No, it's large.
In addition to Steve's request, I would love to see how many staff are currently serving those different, as resources for those different programs.
So Paul's suggestion was, in addition to quantifying the number of people reached, just quantify the staff involved. I hope you're good with fractions. What else, just in terms of clarifying what we have today? All right. I know this will surprise everyone a great deal, but we'll be building to the right on the slides. And as I showed the next column, which is going to articulate some hypotheses on where we need to go next year. A reminder, as we said last night, our hypotheses in these future service areas are informed by the work of the stakeholder process, Barack's listening tour, and as recent as last week, all our calls with ambassador CEOs and board CEOs about this path. Okay? All right, so for the next year, you can see that we're trying to be responsive, as I said, to the desire to ramp up our capabilities in this area to meet the needs of the field. You can see additional, and look, I took some artistic license here to get things to fit on the page without going to like 8-point font. So if there's something on the left that is not on the right, it doesn't mean that it's going away. It's just trying to make some room. But you can see we want to grow in each of these areas, and for each of these audiences. You know, if you think about the first column, those are audiences for us. So we know that we have the potential to take Peoplehood to the next level and enhance the way we serve our executives. We're eager to get started in supporting the board chairs at local JCCs in a deeper way. In the third row around professional leaders, we have gotten, particularly I would say in the stakeholder paradigm discussions, a lot of requests for I would say the traditional kinds of consulting that JCCA offered in times past. Functional consulting, if you will, around camp and fitness and wellness and memberships. That is not for every J. Okay? For example, when I talk to larger Js, in general, they don't necessarily need that as much. But when I talk to the smaller Js, or maybe Js with newer execs, there's greater interest. So this is one of many areas where I find there's a fair amount of diversity in the field. Okay? But there's a lot in that third row around professional leadership. Okay? The only other bullet I'll call out before I ask for your reactions and questions in the other column, sorry, in the other row, is the regional conferences. So Scott is here representing the South Florida Mafia. I know South Florida has been particularly effective with regional convenings. I think there's a group in the Southeast that does that as well.
We're the Southeast now.
Oh, is that right?
Florida went to, Mafia of the Southeast.
Nice.
Who'd you knock off?
Hey, it's the mafia.
We took over.
The association, I think, has been supporting that in some ways, but there's a curiosity around how we can do that in a deeper way and more consistently in other geographies. Okay. So that's just a little overview, and I welcome your feedback, your suggestions, and your reactions. Michael.
I just want to offer a clarification.
Okay.
So these are services that we believe we need to deliver. It doesn't necessarily mean they are all staffed by JCC Association. They may be provided through partnerships with other individuals, corporations, whatever. So we're thinking about the what we're doing right now more than the how we're doing it.
That's right. That's right.
I just know that from being in the field as long as I've been, there's a lot of thought around the consultation of JCC core businesses. And the one area that I think is imperative is that I'm still a little old school about the 4 legs: supporting early childhood, supporting camp, supporting the membership, sports and wellness, aquatics, because if you're not getting the membership, you're not paying for the building to do all the other work. And JCCs are also asking for philanthropic support. Someone that can come to the community and say, I'm ready for a capital campaign. Now, we'll never have enough to do everybody, but we think if we can put people into JCCs to get them started, maybe on our dime for a couple of days, and they like that person, if they want to hire that person, great, but they want to be pointed in the right direction of who are the right people to work with our communities. We're not going to have someone who can design 70 capital campaigns at one time, right? But we can introduce them to like our 3 preferred, highly recommended, and maybe they're discounted because we worked out deals with those consultants. So there are a lot of people that have areas of expertise that would love to tap our market. And we think that maybe there could be, oh, you're a philanthropic consultant, you're at the ambassador level, you get X off. So there's levels on that. But we also know there are people that want consultations on facility walkthroughs, marketing, IT. So we're going to have to be pretty judicious about how we do it. We're not going to be able to have a full-time person doing all that work. It would be epic if we could, but we need to decide.
Not next year.
Not next year.
Not next year. Jay.
Can I just get a clarification? The things on the right column, many of them are also on the left column, but there's some things on the left column that aren't like like J Summit or MIFGOSH, I don't see on the, it doesn't mean we're abandoning does that just mean that's not a 2026 thing?
Yeah, Jay, I'm glad you asked that. So here's the method to my madness, okay? So recognizing that we can't push all these buttons at once, that we have to prioritize. The areas like Kibunim or Sheva that are mentioned in both columns are mentioned in the middle column or the right column because we're specifically trying to level up on that next year, okay? So some things not in both columns, it's probably because steady as she goes. It's great, keep her going, and there's other higher priorities on the triage scale for us to do next year.
I just wanted to.
And just to add one more thing, and then I'll try my best to get it out. Sheva is a perfect example of what's been going, that's challenging for the field, Jay. We have 2.5 FTEs for 183 schools.
Sure.
Everybody is on crisis. I need trainings, come to my community, right? How can we have 2 people supporting 183 schools across the country? Especially at this time of staffing changes and staffing scarcity.
No,
So that's just an example of
the only reason I brought it up is what Andrew said yesterday really resonated with me, is that as we're focusing on whatever these things are, the connective tissue, which is generally gatherings, networking, whatever. Again, if we're not doing away with it, that's fine. I just don't want to lose that because what he said really.
Yeah. Yes. Phyllis.
One of the concerns that I've had in the way we're talking about the 3 pillars is that there's a level of basic, I would call it a center for operational excellence. The idea that what the Jays seem to need, what I heard from chairs as I was making my calls, is stuff that they can likely get from each other if we give them that connective tissue. but that we need to give them the acknowledgement that this is one of their biggest issues. And I would have waited till we went through all of the 3 pillars, but in some of what we're talking about just now, it does come down to operational excellence, and it isn't necessarily about talent. And helping them, like, visually look at what we're talking about doing differently tomorrow than what we've done today.
Yeah.
I think that there's a need for just sort of the acknowledgement of the blocking and tackling that they're having such a hard time with.
Yeah, I am with you, and it may not be coming alive in this table, but from my perspective, we're addressing that need that you heard from the chairs that you spoke with in a couple of different ways. One is building the functional expertise in the areas where they're struggling to a degree, and I think that comes through in the professional leader consultancies. But then the other piece is the convening, the meeting, and the connectivity, which is expressed in the conferences that you'll see here as well as on the subsequent slides. So there may be a better way to optically present that, but I do think that the objective that you're highlighting is one that we're committed to responding to. Paul.
This is very helpful, but as a pitch deck, I think it would be very confusing to a potential investor. But I do appreciate, Barack, your idea of categorizing things in easier to understand, recognizable areas of our expertise, like early childhood. And focusing on early childhood, I think that elevated probably should be up there too, don't you think, Jared?
It's coming.
Okay, so
It's confusing a little bit, but we can tell you why we landed in certain ways.
okay, but I think it's easier for us if we saw maybe those categories, early childhood, camp, these types of things, and then focusing on how talents, some categories are there and set up. But thank you.
I actually think that will be confusing just because there's so many moving parts. So if you guys, I think it'll be better if we step through. We'll take our time and step through it, Andrew.
So I mentioned this on a call, you see the elements to stand on the soapbox. I mentioned it again, I don't know if it ends up in the third column. I think one place where JCCs are vastly under resourced is in their talent recruitment and development locally. And as we're thinking about elevating talent, as we think about ourselves as the largest employer of talent in the Jewish space, what are we doing to help JCCs, the professionals at JCCs, ensure that they have professionalized their process to bring the highest quality talent into the system and continue to develop them locally. I bet if you poll JCCs, the number of people using the proper ATS is below 50%. I just don't think we do a very good job putting our money into our businesses and then probably a very poor job supporting them through the support services. And if there's a way that we can help those professionals be the very best, it'll just help us pay dividends locally. So I know it's one of those groups we don't think about, but I think it's a very important group that we should be thinking about investing in.
Just piggybacking super quick on Andrew's point, I don't remember if it was this center or another, and I just haven't been able to turn it into a slide fast enough. But there was a really interesting observation that was offered with the ambassador CEO calls, which is that we talk about the way we serve CEOs, CFOs, camp directors, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But rarely do we talk about the way that we support the chief people officer or thereabouts in the JCC org chart. So I think about, Andrew, what you're saying is one of the ways that we might support that professional being successful at the JCC level. So we do need to incorporate that, I think, into this one. Let's go to Todd and then Scott.
So I think I heard Gali say at a conference, Gali say, your name is here?
I know.
At a conference that our style of post and pray does not work. And that's often what we do locally. And one of the areas, and it's just I've lived through this last year, that is challenging is fun. It's great that we may get back into executive search, but we don't just need executives. We need chief experience officers, or we need chief people officers, or we need whatever, and a strategy and an articulation of how we're going to recruit those beyond putting something on Indeed is going to be helpful. And level setting, it may be more attractive to move to Toronto or Miami and not Tucson. So how do we, as a field, talk about all the wonderful opportunities for professionals in all the different JCCs, so that if we're trying to level up everybody, then we talk about it in a way that we're not just driving people to to Chicago, Toronto, so on and so forth, because they're bigger cities for people to live in than Tucson, Arizona, which is not Phoenix.
I appreciate that, Scott.
Yeah, thanks, Todd. So we're leveling up. So I just want to get everybody to realize our investment in JCCA is one thing. So say we're $60,000 or $80,000. JCCs are putting another $50,000, $60,000 into professional development, where we're doing it on our own. I have an AI consultant, I have a strategic consultant, I have a speaking consultant, I have different consultants that are working so we can level up our staff. So it's happening here, with the national office, and then each individual J is spending we're spending a lot of money. We're sending people, I have 7 people here today. We're going to, people here. All these different things cost money, and so we're budgeting about $120,000 a year for trainings and travel and things like that. So it's a big investment, and I think it's worth it. But I wanted everybody to understand there's 2 levels of this. There's JCCA investment, and there's investment that we're also making at our local J's.
Yes, and what I hear you saying is there can be a very compelling ROI for JCCs if we lean into this.
Yes.
Suzanne?
Yeah, so I want to just respond to something Todd said about where the talent comes from, right? Okay. I know, he's a spinning head like, who is this?
It is that season.
I think that is a great idea. I fully support it. The issue I see is it doesn't recognize the differences around the country in regions and where talent is and what talent in those regions might be looking for. Not everyone in the field is going to be looking to move from one place to the next place to the next place. Some of them, many of them, I would venture to say, like in suburbia where I am, they want to stay in their community or, in a reasonable commuting distance, but they want to grow in their roles. And that's the problem. There's no growth in a lot of those places, but there's no place for them to go.
It's probably against it.
Yeah.
I just want to reinforce your point about the chief people officer. We're trying to solve this problem where we have experts in the field who work for us, or we should have more experts in the field who work for us. This is a strategic space that we need people who live and breathe this all the time, and we don't provide a platform for them to come together and identify those issues that are local and regional, but more importantly, connect all the pieces of this. So in a perfect world, our chief human resource officer is going to look at this and say, we're doing camp training. That's amazing. We know that's a pipeline for future JCC staff. How do we plug into that so that we can then take our local camp staff and identify maybe the top 5% that may end up working for us down the road? So I would want them invested in the strategy and at the table to unpack all this so I can take that off of my plate. And we try to do, as CEOs, we're trying to do it all sometimes. And partially here, this seems to be like a great place if we're going to put a stake in the ground on talent, that we say, okay, we've got people in our organizations that can help us lead it, great, and if we don't, maybe we should be thinking about having people in our organizations, and the association can help us identify those people, the processes, the systems, and if it's regional, maybe if you know, smaller J's need support, maybe there's 2 J's or 3 J's that are sharing one person in that particular space. But we need a place for those people to help us lead, and if this is what we want to lead into, we need to put those people up on a pedestal and figure out how to attract the greatest group that we can and elevate them as quickly as we can. So with that, I will.
This is great feedback. I'm taking notes on my slide notes. Keep going. Other observations, questions about the path that we're describing here?
Hi, I'm going to stand so everybody can hear me. I'm looking at this and I'm saying, I am a lay leader. I am on this board, JCCA, and I see lay leadership. Talent development also comes from there, and there's no way I can get people to come from Detroit to J Summit. That's a long way off. But you say Maccabi, and we have leadership development potential for our boards and the image, and you're talking about that. We also can't get people to come take a job in Detroit for the J, but they can come to Federation. Our Federation understands leadership development for lay leaders, and I don't think we really have done a very successful job here at JCCA. And I know I'm daring to say this, but to be able to want to be, we're talking yesterday about nurturing identification. When I tell people that I'm on this board, they get very excited. I represent something really important, but in Detroit, they don't see the connection. We have not done enough to make opportunities like regional conferences, cohort development, to have a CEO come or a president come from JCCA and say, hi to the board, this is great, does not mean anything. I think identification of the bigger picture is critical. And so when you talk about this, and we have a lay leader who became the CEO, so he got it. And that's what we really want to see in Detroit, and I know I speak for you, that we can't get people to be on boards, committees, because there's no image and status, they don't feel it. But I can invite people to come on any of my federation boards or committees, and they're there. And I think we really need to look at lay leadership. J Summit is a long way off.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I advanced the slide to just show what we saw a little bit over the horizon in 2027. We had flagged the need for additional lay leader development programs and more specialized professional development programs, more specialized professional development programs for senior managers and middle managers at JCCs, but we're open to bringing some of those forward if that's the right decision. But from a timing perspective, yeah, we had that in 27. Any other feedback on this center before we move on? Anything you want to highlight and particularly endorse, or anything you're questioning?
One more thought on 27 and beyond. It's a total random thought.
Okay.
Plug it later or not.
Okay.
But assuming in 27 or beyond we perceive ourselves as the center of talent development in the Jewish space, then is there an opportunity to think bigger about hosting some kind of larger communal gathering of talent where other Jewish organizations would come together under the JCC brand and or umbrella that would give us an opportunity not just to showcase the work that we do, but to attract various stakeholders to come in and be part of it. So almost be the shepherd in this particular space with other organizations that might lead other people to think about partnership with us differently.
Interesting. Go ahead.
I just want to jump in on that because I see Gali's here. Thank you for being with us again this morning. We also have to think about how we leverage what's out there, Andrew. So for example, JPro, with JFNA is in many ways moving into that space of being the global talent conference for the Jewish community. And it was everybody there was 1,000, Federation, and there was like 100 JCC people. We have to decide how we're going to fit into that ecosystem and make sure that we're customizing for the JCC. So, right, because that conference really, do you want to explain, like, that's what it is, it's a national.
Yeah, it's a national conference for professionals. I love the language of leveling up. Yes, we need to level up our people. So it's for professionals, and we had it last year, or earlier this year, in Baltimore, 1,500 professionals. And yeah, JCCs need to.
So if we're a third, we're actually less than 5% of the attendees.
Yes.
Okay, because we do our own thing. So on one hand, that model is actually out there, and they have said, well, should we, I love that we're doing our own ProCon, it could be epic, and we should be doing, should we be doing our ProCon every 4 years, but also partnering with them and having 5,000 people there, right? And so we have to decide also who's got ecosystem, who's got infrastructure. So you're right.
I'm looking at it as the specific doesn't matter to me. It's what do we do to change the way we are perceived in the space, right? If we want to leverage it in partnership, even better from a resource standpoint. But how do we present ourselves and show up in that environment so that we're seen differently? If this is something that this is one of the things we want to put our 3 big bets on. We really need to be leading in this space.
David, did you have a point on this discussion, or are you going to move us on? Because I think Tyler's going to jump in on this point.
Mine's just a deeper dive to the word consultation.
Okay. You want to make your clarification?
Just consultation to me also is something that's, related to goal-related activity, should have outcomes to them.
Sure.
And I don't know, over the years I've had conversations where somebody said to me, representing a JCC, oh, I'm talking to this person every week, in early childhood education. And I'm going, why? Is it, to me, is that sucking of resources? Is that momism or being a helicopter? And so it's in developing talent. We want to train trainers. It's the outcomes of things. So let's throw that out.
So I like what Andrew said about us trying to promote leadership, because I think that helps us. And if we're, again, I'm stuck on recruiting, but it's recruiting and development, that the Jewish communal landscape is maybe a lattice to grow and not a ladder within one place. So if we think about that, there's a wider talent pool than just thinking about who is in the JCC right now as a camp director that can be my next program director. Maybe it's someone who's an assistant exec at a Hillel who's ready to move into a larger Jewish communal space. So I think these gatherings with the intention of not stealing, but helping people grow and not leave Hillel or Federation or JCC because they just need something more, and they go into the private sector, the Boys and Girls Club, would be a failure on our part as Jewish communal leaders.
Okay, Michelle, I don't know.
So I'm coming at this from a little different angle, something Golly said and something Andrew said. For those of us that are integrated or functional federations, JCCs, and I think Carol kind of made this point, we can only do so much, and we can only pay for so much. So we are in the tug of war all day long of, do we do it with Federation, do we do it with JCCA? So the idea that we can be more collaborative and work together, capitalize without spending our own money on what JFNA is already offering, but maybe doing it with our own, I'll call it white label or private label, put a little tag on where we say, hey, JFNA is having this conference. JCCA is collaborating and we'll be there with them. We're going to do it too. We're going to have some of our own meetings, but we're mostly going to be like doing this thing together. The more we can do those kinds of things, I mean, I don't know what out of the 145 or what the number of integrators are today.
It's 33.
33. So that's a quarter of your, maybe a little more than a quarter of your JCCs today.
It's like you were. It's like you
are
were.
in that box. So
you want to look at my next slide.
Okay, I tried.
Wait, there's a next slide?
Yeah, wait, there's more.
Just warming up, Jen.
Is JFNA can be one of our consulting agencies. Just like we don't have to fight each other.
No, absolutely. we can talk about this more in our work together this morning, but it feels like it's a new day there, and there's more opportunity for collaboration than I've seen in the past. All right, so that's one. All right, Mark, and then for real, we're moving on. I'm not joking.
One thing that I've tried to push with my local community in their HR efforts is, you said something about universities here, but there are a lot of people, professionals being trained to be Jewish professionals. And we, especially not the coast, but in other cities, we need to have better relationships in the value proposition we offer in these other cities. So we need to have connections into those schools in their recruiting process. And so I think that's a miss. It's not on.
Awesome. All right, you set the bar high for the first center. Let's keep going. So I hypothesized that Center for Talent Development might be the one of the three centers that there's like the greatest hunger or desire in the field for us to level up. With the Center for Jewish Peoplehood, I'm not giving grades to any of the centers, but my hypothesis here would be that the association gets the highest grade. We're doing the best in this center today of the three centers. We have some marquee programs that you all know about, Games, JWB, and the Israel Center that are very much appreciated by the field, and we've got to keep those going as we strive to level up. So this center, again, in just sort of plain language, is intended to inspire Jewish pride, connection, and responsibility throughout the movement. It's also intended to help us connect better on a global basis, not just with Israel, but Jewish communities all around the world. So we can be thinking about those purposes as we look at the services that are in place. So here is the map of what's happening today. Again, like no value judgments on anything, and we're probably missing some smaller things, but this is a snapshot of what's happening today that we think would fall into Peoplehood. Just like I did with talent development, I welcome your questions. I don't recognize that name. Tell me what's going on here. Yes?
This morning, the role of Fran Trachtenberg will be played by Rhea Schwartz. I see nowhere anything about Jewish culture, Jewish literature, Jewish music. There are centers, mine being one of them, that has a major theater. And it's a big part of our cultural activity, both within the Jewish community and the city at large, and it's nowhere.
Well, did we miss something that's going on today? This is a snapshot of what's going on today.
Today?
No, I know, at the association.
Right now today, JCC. It's not leading.
It might be
the
coming on the
space.
next button.
Okay.
And to be clear also,
tell Fran.
back in the day, this is where things can jump between centers. When we said consultations, JCCA used to have a full-time arts and culture consultant, Randy Luderman. I don't know if Randy's in the room.
No.
That was, her time was repositioned for other work.
Right.
And I can tell you, early in my career, Randy and others were resources to everything you just described for communities. And we eliminated that position.
Forgotten.
Sure.
I can, so I'm with you. I just want to make sure that.
So I have a quick question just about identifying where things, why one fell in this bucket versus the other. So I look at J Summit, and just wondering how it's landed in the talent development bucket versus the Peoplehood bucket, because I think it could fill both. Yes. And also the fluidity of buckets.
Yes.
Right? So somehow I would imagine resources from the JCCA. Right now, it might be easier to attribute it to Peoplehood because that's the goal for 27, and then we redevelop it as a program.
So I would say that's, you just nailed something that we've been struggling with. So part of it is architecture of the centers. Part of it will be like, okay, I'm already thinking an org chart. What professionals will own it, right? So the same thing happened in Mifgosh. Is Mifgosh a talent program? It's everything. When you come to an executive conference, you've got talent development. You need to talk about Jewish peoplehood issues. You need to talk about measurement and innovation. So things like our conferences really are about all three. The reason we laid a lot of them in talent is because we would expect the head of our Center for Talent Development to kind of quarterback those things. But you still have to pull across all three. So some of it has been more about how we start to think about the org chart. But really, yes, J Summit is our umbrella conference across all 3 centers.
Can you explain,
Does that
while
make
you're on
sense?
this topic, is it the same explanation for Elevated? Like, I'm just in my head.
Yes, I've been struggling with Elevated
Okay.
for many reasons, both from the birth, the launch.
Yeah, I'm just saying, why wouldn't we?
I stuck it right now is because there's definitely a disconnect right now between Elevated and Sheva in terms of the way they work together and communicate. Because Elevate is a massive partnership between JFNA and the URJ across 3 major platforms, I was praying that however we staff the centers, that quarterback will help us to navigate that work. It's not, to me, just a talent. Yes, it's ultimately about talent. However, it is crossing these 3 major partners that are all about connecting, leveraging our work. So that's one that we can flip back and forth. That we have been, Brian and I and somebody's been talking about where does Elevate live, and just being completely transparent with the board. Some people wonder, should JFNA hold it? Should we really be holding it? URJ doesn't really want to hold it, and it's a major opportunity and concern. So right now, Elevated needs kind of its own little thing. So, yes.
I want to say a word about the JCC global collaboration. First of all, I'm glad it's in your slide. And I want you to see us...
Madara, talk a little louder.
I want you to see us as a resource for the JCCs. I want to remind the board that a couple of years ago there was a JCCA task force that decided that JCC Global is the global arm of JCC Association. So, and it's a two-way street. So first of all, it's very important, I think, for this board to see yourself as global Jewish leaders and to take into consideration the global Jewish world, because you have a very important role in our global network of more than 1,000 JCCs. JCC Association and the JCCs it represents are the leading organization of the global movement. We're now 3 staff people, we used to be 1. So, and in our program, just for your knowledge, at least a third of participants, and sometimes more than 60% come from JCCs in North America. So consider us as a resource to elevate the global Jewish connection.
Excellent. Todd?
I'm just going to make a comment just for the future. Okay. Obviously, the JCC Maccabi games, probably when we look at the numbers, are one of the things that we do that serve the most people. Obviously, there's talent involved because you've got delegation heads and coaches and so on and so forth. And I would like to include, there you go. That's it.
Sorry, Vince.
No, that's me.
That's okay.
No, it's not.
I told you to access it.
It's just such a wonderful thing that was done to really include people with disabilities within the work that we're doing. I just don't want to ever lose that opportunity.
I think it's probably obvious by now at this point in our conversation, but let me do say explicitly, yes, these are 3 separate centers, but we're still going to be a small business, a small not-for-profit business, and I expect that there will be great collaboration and fluidity between the centers. There will not be hard and fast silos between them. So to the discussion that has emerged, I do anticipate things will go back and forth. That'll be even reinforced more when we look at the Center for Innovation, which includes an incubation lab where things might literally grow out of that center and then go into others, okay? So I do expect things to move over time. All right, so this is where we are today. Let's go to the next slide. And talk about what's in store. So for the most part, okay, painting with quite a broad brush. Remember I said that my hypothesis is that this is perhaps the strongest of the 3 centers today. I think for the most part, there's not like a dramatic change on the horizon in 2026 for any of these programmatic areas. All of them can be taken to the next level, and there's opportunity to improve the scale and depth of them. But maybe I would say there's a little bit more of an incremental approach here than in the other two centers. To which I say, thank goodness, I don't want to have to go 1,000,000 miles an hour in 3 centers at one time. Brock, I do want to invite you to talk a little bit about your observations and discussions with the field about JCC's and JCCA's potential with young Jewish families, the collaboration that we have listed here for the Mandel Center.
Sure. Let's cover that. I think a lot of these areas from being around for a long time need some zooming out from board committees. The Ruth's work, we talked about a real strategic plan for the JWB, the work that's happening, our work to support chaplains, our need to figure out how to partner with seminaries to get more chaplains to do this work. So a lot of the stuff is actually happening, but we need to figure out ways that we want to partner and elevate and get people more inspired about it. Obviously, like the Maccabi games are incredible, right? Getting kids to go to Israel now. There's alumni opportunities. Each of these needs strategic plans, but we can't do everything at once. So we got to really make sure that dollar for dollar, impact for impact, we are focused. I have had a long time hypothesis, and it all started by my friend, mentor, Mark Sokol, who presented to our movement that we should be leading around young Jewish families. That we should be indispensable to young Jewish families, and that in many ways I believe, in my hypothesis, that we could become like if there's a foundation for Jewish camping, we should be the foundation for young Jewish family engagement. Because a lot of my colleagues, because of resources, are doing everything they can to support the families within their early childhood center. And there are thousands of other young Jewish families in their community that might have chose the Montessori school, believe that if I don't put my 3-year-old in that private school, I'm not going to get them in at 5. We've all heard, every director knows about the kids leaving the school at age 3 because they're afraid about not getting in. But there's still 1,000 families across our community that are mixed marriages, blended, biracial, LGBTQ, that need to be seen at their JCC. And so I took Mark Sokol's PowerPoint, literally went back, changed some logos, changed some language, and shocker, funders started coming and saying, well, the JCC wants to lead about supporting young families. Federation's like, that's a perfect lane for you to be in. Every rabbi would say, 0 to 7? We all are struggling. We don't get those kids to join us till like 3rd grade bar and bat mitzvah year. If you could figure out how to engage those young families in Jewish life, but engage the synagogue, not in lieu of. Partner with the young, cool rabbis of town, and I believe that I would love us to explore taking that Mandel Center for Jewish Education that's just massive. It's like a black hole of programs, and we should reposition ourselves as a movement. When Andrew says we should be, which I agree with Andrew, like leading in town, people should know. We don't need to do that alone. That's when I asked the question about where do we lead and partner. There is no better partner right now to lead with like leading edge. They got the talent, they got the workshops, they got the research. We should customize it, maximize it in this space. And I love PJ Library, but PJ Library to me is not a community. Like in the sense, it's a community of people doing it. We should be seen. People that are like worried about the Jewish future should be like feeding us seed money. So the dream that I would have is the same way we have dream that we give out grants for people to do Israel programming. Can you imagine people funding us and us giving out grants to do young family Jewish engagement? Here's $5,000 to do a Sukkah family fest. A lot of Jays just do not have those extra resources. And if we can give out grants in that area, I think that narrative would be massive. And that's why I think it is. I found in Baltimore, as we built a brand called J-Life, kind of inspiring the next families of Jewish life, whatever we called it. Shocker, more people would show up our campus for like these 800-person programs going, why don't I go to camp here? Why don't I put my kid in this preschool? Why am I not like working out here? Oh, I haven't been to this JCC in 20 years. Now I have 2 kids. So they might have chosen a different preschool at the local synagogue, which is great. But we have a chance to really connect people. And I just love us to really think about a new era for the Mandel Center.
So I think this is awesome, okay? I would actually call it out, not at the Mandel Center.
Awesome.
I think the key is changing the word education, right?
Engagement. American Center for Jewish Family Engagement.
And it has a whole different.
That might be better.
Okay.
But I think that's the value add to the field. If we're leading in big thinking, and we should have taken, I was one of 2 people that took the Boston model and scaled it. That model should be in 80 JCCs across North America. You should be able to go to another community. Who just said this to me the other day? Lily, in Boston, had a call that said, or on that call, she said, her sister-in-law, whatever, in Albany, she said, they're like, I think it's a blended family or mixed marriage. She said, we need family engagement. There's not enough stuff happening in the Albany's connected area. Like there's preschools, but we don't need them for preschool. We want to meet other like-minded families. We want to do stuff together. How can you get some of that Boston stuff in Albany? And Lily's saying, that's our job. Not Lily's job to design programs from Boston to Albany, if you get my point. To scale what's working, and I actually think it would be a game changer for us as a movement. This is an area that I really think we can put a stake in. This is where we lead, and then people partner with us. So another one that just came out, we'll hear about in the next 2 weeks, the Jewish Grandparenting Network is doing an online, unbelievable 4-hour conference for Jewish grandparents on how to be transmitters of Jewish identity to the next generation. Because we know that 70% intermarriage, that means one partner might not really have all the tools yet, but the grandparent becomes, a transmitter. She's like, would you partner with us? I'm like, what does that mean? Well, Deb's Weinberg from Baltimore, she was a lady here now, she's there in Texas. Just pump it out. You guys have the market. It's easy peasy. Easy peasy, because anyone who's in that space, who's dabbling in that young family engagement space, knows that we have the market, or could be the low access bar in. Let me just give you an example about the number of partners that we could lead with in this area.
Jeremy.
Sorry, I'm talking in your ear, but I didn't realize.
I'm sad I have to leave because I have a flight early, but as I'm listening to this conversation, I think it's really important to think about donors and potential funding for all the stuff that we're trying to do. To me, the Peoplehood piece is kind of what we're all about. And as a funder, and as I would suspect, most of our funders will get more excited about this pillar than they're going to get excited about talent or other things. I think it's really important to not forget, I think the JCCA's role is to bring more resources to the movement. So I think it's really important that I love what I just heard about the Jewish engagement stuff that Rob was just talking about. I think it's important to not lose focus on things that are working great in the hobby. I think in partnerships with Federation and RJ, super important. I just think it's really important while we're reimagining what we could be, to not forget what we are and make sure that we are doing what our funders want us to do.
Yes, well said. One quick commercial, actually 2 super quick commercials. One is Rochelle. 1 bit of feedback from the ambassador CEOs. When we brought this up and Barack made his pitch about young family engagement, they yes-and us. They said, yes, do that, but also let's not take our eye off of serving older adults and active adults. And we agree. But we feel like there is this open space and need in the market for the kind of expertise that Barack was talking about with young families. There were hands up in the back. Let's go all the way in the back. Oh, I'm sorry, remind me of your name.
Carol.
Carol, okay.
Carol. Yes, I wanted just to follow Barack with a
Good luck.
success. I said something negative, I believe, before. And now it's J Family, and we have Brian who could attest to all of this. We have satellites all over our community. People want to be part of J Family. Interfaith families are there. We also have a grandparent network with that as well. And it's so successful. And we have donors begging to be part of that. It's the place to be, and I think when we're looking at this, it's really tying Jewish peoplehood to innovation, because it's time to look to the future and our future leaders. And people want to identify with being Jewish. And J Family is just fabulous. I support everything you're saying. It's so exciting that we would be the ones to really be identified with young families would be fantastic.
Awesome.
So, Lauren, sorry. Two comments. So, being in Boston, I'm thrilled to hear that you are actually embracing the idea of young families. Something that we spent a lot of time working on in Boston when I was the board chair there. And I think what the value add to that is a couple of ways. One is partnering with your federation. It's something that our federation really loves. And as we also just adding on to it, what people found is that communities, when JCCs are brick and mortar, what happens is there are people who are outside of their brick and mortar who want to be connected. And the model that the JCO that we set up for young families in Boston allowed for hubs and hub connections. So you could actually reach out, sorry, a little bit farther into it, but this, as you're thinking about the geographic distribution of your JCCs, to be able to go out into the markets to actually reach them where they are and connect them early on. So that's our thing.
And I'm just going to say it because I think they would want me to share with you. The Markets Foundation, when I met with Jay, came and walked me out and said, and you start helping your college think about the hub and spokes. You got to start creating little satellite things, programs in libraries, and get that brand and doing that work. We're not able to build tons of JCCs, but there are, to your point, what Jeremy just said, the funders are interested in knowing that we're going beyond our walls. And that's, for some of my colleagues, that's scary. It's a cost, it's a time. But those of us who've done that work, if you do it well, and you lure people back to you, it will help you in camp, it will help you in all the other.
And when your J on Wheels gets picked up by a tornado and goes like a half mile down the street, it makes like the local news. So
There's no place like home.
One of the reasons I love coming to these meetings is I always hear really brilliant ideas of things people are doing in their local communities and things we do some of, we don't. Some, I go back and say, hey, you ought to call Boston and find out how they're doing that. But I feel like the one thing, and I don't know, maybe it's not in the slide, Brian, but where's the part that the association collects the best of the best?
You're telling me, Michelle. You are like...
I'm like your straight...
Yes, you're always 2 slides ahead.
Your brain is very good.
Eating you in your mind. You're such a good job there. But it's true. I feel like
That's part of our work.
I mean, that's what we need to be. We need to say, oh, wow, Boston has Parkinson's, Tampa has Parkinson's. I heard that they're putting Parkinson's here. I'm like, oh my God. I mean, I'll tell you how we did it.
We agree. Andrew, you guys are going to
Yeah, I'm sure the objectives, the outcomes come after all of this, for sure. I just want to urge us to, as we think about how much this is going to cost us in terms of capacity. Like, for instance, when I think of a near-term priority, I could be wrong, but just expanding the capacity of participation in the JCC County Games would be a near-term priority. I see it as, okay, we're going to do that maybe through Israel or maybe through campus. We need to be doing it locally. Like, everyone that I speak to for this summer is like, how do I get more kids? I'm like, call Sam. Not my problem, but one of the issues we're going to have, for real, is that if we have an ambassador level, and we have people at the ambassador level that think that we get more access to recovery.
But Jeremy and Sam say they're working on having 3 sites. I mean, they are focused on that. I don't know that it's on there.
Maybe, but if we're talking 26, 27, and we're not able to move the numbers by 26 or 27, that 18-month runway is going to end, and Mark Fisher or Holly now is going to say, well, we only get 10 kids. Why would I be an ambassador? We want to send 50 kids. So we do need to think about expanding the capacity, and that might be an objective, and it might be secondary, but that's a big nugget on its own in a near-term priority. That might have as much value as a new project, a new site, a new anything. So I don't want to minimize that piece of it when we're thinking about new. It might just be more.
Yeah. Sam, any quick comments on that? She agrees. Sam agrees.
Big on the cost. We just need to keep doing what we're doing, but it's up to where this is the big event.
Perfect. Yeah. Awesome. Just in terms of over the horizon here, and then we'll move more into innovation. In 27 and beyond, we're keeping going on the initiatives that we have in 26. So if that center of young family engagement is in design in 26, hopefully we're bringing that to life and scaling in 27. All right, so that's the second of the three centers. Now let's go to the third and final center, impact and business innovation. This center is probably the most skeletal today. There's not as much going on in this center. We see the need, we see the opportunity to add value with this center. There's just a little bit less here. Okay? The purpose of it, in our estimation, is what's shown on the slide. So the lab piece I already introduced. So there are so many great programs that are occurring organically at JCCs across the continent. JCC associations not have to invent them all. There's no way they ever will invent them all. But we can have a role in scaling programs that are working. You will also see in the subsequent slide too that we are placing our responsibility for helping tell the story of JCCs as a movement and locally in the center. Okay, so the capabilities that we anticipate that JCCA will have to support that work will go here. Okay. Lastly, there's also a person could say like business blocking and tackling, group purchasing, insurance collaboratives, etc. They're a form of innovation. It's not programmatic innovation, but business innovation that you'll see here as well. Right? So those are some of the themes that I expect that you'll see as we go through. So today, okay, in the top row, the incubator doesn't exist really. At least it doesn't exist formally. Okay, so that's coming in the near future. We hope. We do have a variety of tools for communications within the movement. That's the meaning of the parenthetical in. And then the next row is about communications outside to our stakeholders, or at least not to our collective board and staff. So any questions about what exists today in this center?
So you're including basically like the question I raised about operational excellence and basic operations in here?
Well, I think it might depend. It might depend. Like membership and fitness consultation or membership strategy, I would put in the Talent Center. This is going to be more about perhaps IT software, or as I say, group purchasing, those kinds of shared platforms. So depending on exactly what you're referring to, could be on in either or both. What else, Tom?
I mean, I think, well, never mind, maybe in town, I was going to say, the encouraging of us to use leading edge, and then that goes to operational excellence.
Yes.
I don't remember if that was in talent or not, but it should be somewhere.
Yeah, good point. I'm proud of it.
I just want to maybe add on to what Brian said. We talked a lot about this center. Because of the size of the engagement platform of JCC Association, being a new face, I get a lot of calls, and everybody's got lots of products. I joke around that I've heard about more new Jewish parenting programs that are going to revolutionize, and we want to work with JCCA, right? Last couple of weeks ago, I met the CEO of Hadassah. They're developing new women leadership programs. Can we partner and create cohorts of JCCs? So I think this morning I got another one. Everybody, I need somebody, selfishly, that gatekeeps the association and says, wait a minute, I'll meet with that person. You gotta see their budgets, what kind of resources, what kind of overhead, what kind of time and impact is it gonna take us before we invest 20 hours in partnership meetings?
What's on point for us?
Right. Does it actually help the field? Is this just what the field wants? Because sometimes donors will call and say, we need you to do this. We need to push back and say, right now we love this initiative, It's not that we're not behind it, it's just not the highest and best use of our priority. Michael would tell you, we've been terrible about taking overhead on these partnership opportunities. So we have staff to say, hey, we need to do this, add this to your plate. And so if we're gonna look at these, I want someone who thinks entrepreneurially, who says, does this make sense? Now, after they birth it and say, no, we should do this. Like, we should really, then it might move over to the Center for Peoplehood and move over to town. Does that make sense? But this is the place that does two things. Serves as a clearinghouse to evaluate opportunities, and there are so many, it's like overwhelming. Golly said there's 10,000 organizations. If only 200 want to work with us, someone's got to evaluate 200 partnerships. But it also says, wait a minute, why are we partnering with them and not scaling what's happening in Boston? Right? So someone is also looking at the field and saying, wait a minute, before we jump into new things, and I will tell you what's so exciting about this opportunity is that we can be the incredible operating platform. As I said, you put your app on our platform, but we need to really make sure that it's tested, communities of practice, and it's not as easy just to birth new programs and do them really well. Right. Are they the right people to partner with in this moment?
Todd, you got a comment?
Yeah, I think, out of this, and I think there could be potentially a lot that grows, I would encourage us then to come up with a matrix or a screen that we filter everything through, and some of it may be sustainability of the organization. Does it fit with our mission? Does it advance the work of whatever it is? And then whoever's doing that for Barack that you just mentioned has a set of criteria, and it's consistent, and even though something may be great, it's just not our code.
And that's why I put over there about data partnership with JFNA. If anyone knows Mimi, because I know some of you know Mimi Kravitz. She is unbelievable, has so much incredible data about the search. Almost is like screaming, like, can you have a partner at JCC to do this work with us to leverage that data, tell your story? And they feel like they have not been able to like attack our benchmarking, so I just connected Mimi for the first time to meet Brian. It's kind of shocking that their all search JFNA data had no idea about the Jewish impact data in our benchmarking. Why wouldn't we combine those two to tell the same story? So hence what this person or this division of the organization could do.
So just a quick introduction to the column here, and there were some hands up, but the lift here is heavier than what we were just looking at with the Center for Jewish Peoplehood. So standing up the incubator, really revamping and revitalizing the communication tools in the second row, a lot of opportunity to improve our measurement and analytics in the third row. I do think that there has long been recognized the need for the association to just describe the impact of JCCs collectively for a long time. Daron helped us with 1.5 million, was that the magic number? But like we didn't go any further. I don't think we went further than that in terms of describing our impact, but the possibilities are there. So that's what you see in the third row. More details about the way that we think we can support just the business operations of JCCs in that last row. Phyllis, I don't know if these were some of the things that you had in mind. So yeah, so that's what we have on the horizon there. Jay.
Yeah, just a minor thing. This is the pillar that at first I had a hard time understanding what it was. I actually, and I know it's just a word, but I would maybe throw the word information up there. Like Center for Information Impact and Business Innovation. Because I think a lot of what I think a lot of what this pillar is yes, measuring the impact and all that, but also sharing the information amongst ourselves and the outside.
Yeah, we talk a lot locally about creating, collaborating, and curating. So I agree with Brock on the curation and collaboration piece. And maybe it's not near term, maybe it's the third column, but maybe we need to be thinking a little bit more about how to create more product that the association can own and drive. Like if Maccabi is something that people people can see as a tangible way to engage with the association, are there other things down the road that we should be creating and owning as opposed to collaborating and curating, which are both, they're all good options, but just something to consider.
Right.
Yeah, this is more kind of a structural feeling. I feel like many of the things in here go to what I would call like a Stephen Covey idea, where he talks about sharpening the saw. So we have 3 centers, but there's some things that affect all 3 centers. In my mind, there's a ring around, you know, you had a picture, it had 3 items in it, in the centers, you had a slide. Imagine a ring around the entire thing, right? Imagine a ring around the entire thing, which was really the telling our story portion. So you're not creating a new center, but you're creating a sharpening of the saw of all the centers, which they will all benefit from telling our story, collecting and amplifying data, amplifying how we collaborate together to meet the brand opportunity that we have. So it's just a way, to me, of emphasizing that we have to work together to illustrate to the world the impact of our collective movement. So to me, it's a movement circle, and it deserves its own space. That would be my comment.
Okay. We're with you in content, just a different depiction of it is what I mean.
I understand.
But as Brian is saying, that might be a way to kind of, my concern with the issues about operations is that the J's and the staff and leaders seem to clearly be looking for some of this basic stuff, and that's a way to acknowledge in terms of getting funders and donors and communities to engage with us in this new world. That might be a way of engaging with it and not adding another pillar.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Other feedback here, Michelle?
So in the PR world, JFNA beats JCCA every day because it's out there communicating as a organization, and our federations are able to literally cut and paste content and put it out to our local donors. Similarly, they're constantly out there communicating. I think we need a much better, I talked a little bit about this yesterday, we need a better internal PR program. We need to do a really good job of not just talking to our CEOs, not just talking to our leadership, but talking directly to our JCC members and particularly our JCC boards, not just the chairman, about what we do and what we offer and how we do it. And if that means part of the communications is we create content that JCC can then pick up and use, whether it's programs that can pick up and use, but we need to do a better PR job of making sure our boards understand what it is when we launch all this. We get it all done, and I know some of it already exists. They need to know better about what a great job we're doing. I mean, it sounds bad to say we don't care about it, ourselves on the back, but
we have to.
But we have to do it.
Sure, yeah.
We lose in the PR battle every day.
Other questions or reactions here? In 27 and beyond, you see additional emphasis on telling your story, just as Brian and Michelle were encouraging us to do, and also leaning deeper into measuring our impact, both on our own in conjunction with JFNA and other partners. Okay. All right, so that's the review of what we have in stock for the 3 centers. Let's swim back up to the top. Okay, we're down in the bowels of each of the centers. What are your overall reactions in terms of what, for now, we're prioritizing for 26, things that aren't on the list? Do you feel it's directionally correct?
Yes.
Woohoo! Thank you, sir.
I think it's directionally correct, but I also think it's overwhelming.
Well, certainly for the team that we have now.
That's right.
Yeah. Jay?
Yeah, I was thinking about what Jeremy said, and I'm not going to, just like a lot of how you preface this entire conversation, what I'm about to say isn't perfect or whatever, but it does feel to me, as I'm considering this, that if you think of our constituencies, you have the field,
yep,
and you have the funders, like you have these different constituencies, and it almost, again, it's not perfect in this, neither fits into each bucket, but from the way I've been listening for 18 months, it kind of sounds like talent is really addressing the burning desire that we've been hearing since I first sat in a room with you on the stakeholder from the field and from CEOs. Jewish Peoplehood seems to speak the language and address some of the things that are highest on the desires of funders. And then impact and innovation, like I said, I'm still trying to fully understand it. Feels like it's almost like our internal, I mean, to Brian's point, a lot of that is kind of around, like, it feels like the three centers are kind of, not perfectly, there's overlap and whatever, but kind of address three different, there's the field, the funders, and our own ability to tie it all together.
You're like, are you ready to jump into the marketing committee? Perfect positioning.
I got my hands full.
Change of scenery might do you good, Steve.
A similar comment. To me, it is very overwhelming, and it'd be helpful in each area to say, what in a year, what's the one or two things we're going to see? Because everything below it was topless. It's programmatic. But what's the result from each one? Because then you can go to a funder and say, here's what we expect to see in Peoplehood, the one or two things. Here's what we expect to see in talent. Here's where innovation is going to be in a year.
Other reactions?
Go with the Venn diagram here.
Oh.
So you have this, because here it's separate things, and there's so much going on where you position one thing primarily in one category, but it does impact the other.
What would you put in the middle?
That would be the overlap. And just, you don't need to have JCC. You title already. Yeah, JCC. That's good. Yeah.
Anybody else?
Look, I just want to say, this is not a one-year plan. This is a 10-year reimagination of what JCCA should be doing. That is a capturing of what I've listened to, sat in this room, that the field wants us to do. Yes, we should double down on certain things. We need to double down on Maccabi, we need to double down on talent. But we can't forget that last bucket that people are looking at us for measurement and other stuff. It's not all going to be perfect, and to Steve's point, we need to roll out annual strategic priorities. But I think my job was to say, from where we are currently and financially, and where we need to be, we need to tell our people where we want to be. And yes, it should be overwhelming. Any of us that started as executive directors or big board chairs, our JCCs are overwhelming in the boardroom. To talk about one board, we're talking about preschool, then we're talking about fitness equipment, then we're talking about anti-Semitism. Our work is overwhelming because of the size of the platform. Why would JCCA be anything different? And so the same way that the funders sometimes locally have a tough time getting their arms around the JCC unless they articulate their strategic priorities, I think JCCA is saying, here's where we need to be, here's how we're going to build. I don't expect the funders to jump in full Monty, but if they see every year, well, you're really moving the needle in each of these areas. But I think if we're just talent, people are going to question about the Jewish Peoplehood stuff. So it's also a packaging, it's a marketing strategy. But I think what I heard from one major funder said, I like it. Because for us, we're lane 1. We're lane 2, and we're lane 3. In the past, you would come to us with this big metal work like JCCA, help us, right? We fund talent, we want to partner in this bucket. We partner in innovation. So I do think in terms of way we could talk to funders, would actually streamline some things. David, you were going to say something?
I just want to, add, I always said, growing up in this thing, the thing I love most about JCC is that we have so many touch points. The hardest thing that we've had is that we have so many touch points. The 3 centers simplify that approach, obviously, in there, and yes, it is overwhelming when you see what gets punched, but when you present it as these 3 ideas and all that, and in presenting it, I would think, to potential funders, I would disagree a little bit with Jeremy that I think the funders are balanced against all 3 different sides of that, and there's opportunities in each one.
Just a super quick reminder on where we go from here, and then we'll take your question. So we're in that September, just at the end, obviously, of that September-October zone, figuring out what our capabilities need to be. We translate that into a resource plan, translate that into a financial plan, and an invitation to investors. Right? So that's how we're going to use the conclusions that we talked about today, and we will be back with you all along the way. We'll talk about it at the call in December, and we'll have a great deal of time to spend on it in January.
So my observation, I'm new, so I'm just trying to get all of it, but my observation is the first time I've heard of this 10-year strategy, this seems like a multi-year strategy to me. And I think that is helpful to put perspective on this because there's so much here, and it seems to me, and maybe this is what's coming, is more of a basic of understanding the current, like here's, because otherwise you set yourself up for failure. You try to do and be too many things to too many people all at one time to fix everything.
Yes.
And so it seems like positioning this as a multi-year strategy is logical, and then pick a few things that you know you can win at and start there and lay this out as a longer path.
Yes, we all know this to be true. I mean, it is ultimately a multi-year vision, and the next 12 months are super important. Everybody's watching. So we're leaning into the challenge of bringing this to life as quickly as we can with quality and fidelity, not rushing, but of course we're not going to be able to get everything done.
I know we're a long way to the present to funders, but just a thought is, and it may be I may be ignorant and naive or whatever, but the way we position this and kind of what I see as the beauty of the 3 centers is I really think we need to get out of the business, like we need to be presenting that these are the things we want to do, and we would love for you to partner in one or all of these 3 categories. And again, I'm trying to be diplomatic about how I say this, but we don't need the funder to tell us, oh, well, I have this thing you could do in town. Like, we need to be out of the business of
we have our strategy.
Launching programs that are funded, and instead find funders who want to fund our initiatives. And I know that kind of goes without saying, but I just think it should be spoken. So.
Lisa, you want to talk about where we go from here?
So I appreciate the overwhelming feeling, and because I've had access to seeing this for a while, I have moved out of overwhelmed, and I think as you heard yesterday, it makes you incredibly excited, because I think for the first time in a very long time, there is actually a plan to go forward. And yes, it's not all going to happen at once, but I think that being able to tell people where you want to end up is really important, having them come along with you and build it with you so that they can, help you get to the end. So in terms of the process, how this all worked, I don't necessarily want to open the floor to more commentary about the plan, because I think we've all done that, but is everybody feeling like we gave the information in a way that was good for you all? Does anybody feel like there were parts that didn't work for you? That's a piece that I'd like to open up the floor to right now. I got a thumbs up from Brian Steele. That's good for you. Thank you.
I still have hope.
But
there's a butt coming.
There's no but. Actually, I think, again, multiple years sitting here and being an exec, having an exec in the chair, a former executive in the chair that the Rock is sitting in, not that specific, but, and bringing along Brian, shows that we're really serious about what we're trying to do, but it really is a path. It is a multi-year, and I think we got to give the runway. And I know Barack, you're concerned what happens towards a year from now with all the people re-signing up for their commitment. I think we have to start selling up now on this, and because I think it's not going to be done in 18 months. It's not going to be. There might be some highlights, but it's not going to be done. And I think the JCCA needs the runway because I think we're going to get there. And I really am excited that we at least have some clarity of what we're trying to accomplish. So thank you.
Just to add to that, look, you're in a great position and a difficult position. In that, like,
I'm a lead brother.
we're in a moment where we can do a lot of dreaming, and there's a lot of good stuff that'll come out of this, and I believe you'll be able to go out there and sell it with the pride and passion and sophistication that we need, which is great. But at the same time, we have a field that is going to want to see some things move. So we need to make sure, and you'll have to tell us, as part of the strategy, how we're going to have the horses to do the work today while you're out there selling the work for tomorrow. Because I heard you say before, we have 2 early childhood staff, I think you said, for like 183 kids. That's crazy, right? So now we've got an increased expectation where people have leveled up their commitment in terms of dollars and time, and they're going to want to see some action. And the reality is, and I buy it, like, you're out there trying to sell the next 10 years. So just we have to think about how to do both at the same time. And I know you'll figure it out, but it would be great if you could help us understand how we can help you. Because there's a lot of support in this room to make this happen, and I don't want to lose sight of, I don't want you to feel like you're doing this by yourself.
Because I do not feel alone at all, and that's one thing why Brian and I were chatting. That's what Robert was also, the point of yesterday was managing the present while we curate a future, right? And Michael's line is that we're building a new engine when the plane's in the air. So I think to the point of articulating, I think this year's Gosh Executive Conference should probably be a deep dive so they understand where we're going. So they're like, whoa. Because I think the past was we talked all up here, and people just want to know, and anyone who runs a JCC knows that's a 10-year plan, right? So I think articulating it, and to your point, Andrew, we need early wins. Early wins with a stakeholder, great. Not everyone's looking, right, for the whole brand new XYZ. But if they think, wow, we were able to level up and get Veronica regional consultants for Chevron, so schools can get quicker response, that would be an automatic win. We figure out what are we doing around camping and how we're supporting our camps, major win. And obviously we can come up with 5, 6 other low-hanging fruit, but we have to identify, and that's where I think the ambassadors have become very helpful. What is the low-hanging fruit that we can go out there? Because it'd be fun to invest in early childhood and say, wait, you have 2 for 40,000 children across North America? Like, that's obscene. No business would run a support center that way. But we have to say that, to your point, these are our priorities right now.
And this is what you can expect in the next 18 months that's realistic, that we believe we can achieve, so we can build confidence and momentum. I think it's challenging. I totally get the situation we're in. I think it's very challenging to be able to do both, but we have to find a way to do that.
Just think about that Harvard case study we're going to write in 10 years.
I think we want to be careful saying 10 years, because the reason 10 years seems viable is because of the breadth of what was on that screen. But if the funding comes through, it's not 10 years. And the funding should come through based on what we're doing, how we're partnering, how we're planning. And therefore, to put it out there, not as a next year plan, but also not as a 10-year plan, because we have to be able to walk and chew gum and we have all these analogies, and keep the plane in the air. But the funding makes all the difference because the passion and the leadership and the excellence is already here to do it. We just need bandwidth, and that's about money.
And I think just to say out 10 years, when I spoke to some people at Hell Out, yeah, the money came until you staffed, work out kinks, and really get that campus support center humming. It took them almost 10 years. So I'm saying, for it to be humming where everyone really believes it and feels it,
But
that's
our Jays are gonna feel it long earlier than 10 years.
Yes.
It's just that the impact is not a 10-year impact. The impact in most ways is gonna start reasonably quickly because they will feel these
Hopefully-
incremental differences.
hopefully today at 1 o'clock.
Exactly.
Phyllis, I just want to interrupt and say that I also think that like 10 years got thrown out there because we want to just make the point this isn't happening tomorrow and that we are working towards something. I think the timeline for how that happens is, you're right, like funders coming, and I just want to interrupt everybody for 1 second and say that we're going to stick with Mark Fisher and we're going to have help. And what I hear that I hope what everybody heard in this room for the first time in a long time is the CEOs in the field that are on this board are excited and they feel the hope and they feel that Barack is the right person to be leading us. I want to move, like the urgency, I hope everybody in this board heard that too. And the urgency is we've got a timeline for when these JCCs need to re-affiliate and re-engage with us. And we do need to have deliverables, not all of them, but we do need to have deliverables. And yes, that is going to take resources. But I want to reference what Jay said yesterday about, start looking in there and figuring it out. I have complete faith. What this plan is born out of a lot of work and a lot of effort. We did not, Brian, I don't know how many people he talked to. This was not like, oh, this was sitting in his head. Although when we did see it, I was like, oh, this must have felt good to get out of your head and actually onto a piece of paper already, And I think that prioritization will occur. I think it sort of goes, unspoken. That of course you're going to have to prioritize. Everything can't happen at once. But there is a path forward to the future. And how quickly it happens, yes, some of it's going to depend on resources, some of it's going to depend on onboarding, some of it's going to depend on a team development. And I have complete faith. And I just want to move a little bit into gratitude because both for Barack and for David, people, as Barack was being onboarded, I kind of said to people, he's actually been working 2 full-time jobs for 6 months, and now he's only working 1. Imagine what happens when you're only working 1 full-time job. And this, I'm waving to an empty screen as though there's something up there. That plan is what happens when you're working 1 full-time job. And he has met with funders, and we do have a sense of who wants to fund what. And being able to deliver, Jay, what you said before, like not just meeting what a funder needs, but who are we, who do we want to be going forward and finding the funds to match who we are. And I also want to say that none of this happens without David Lewis. David has been Barack's partner and has just been an unbelievable support. He is there, he's on the phone, I don't know, pretty much all the time. And he's up super early. He's like, I can do an 8 o'clock call. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. And he just really around the clock and has been the most incredible leader. So I just want to say thank you to both of them for everything. And I also want to say what Barack said, which is buckle up, because this board's going to be doing a lot of work in the next coming months. And I just want to talk a little bit about that so everybody understands kind of where we go from here. So where we go from here is that we wanted sort of everybody's, like as Brian said, like directionally, do these 3 centers feel right? Is this the right path we're on? There is a strategic framework task force, and that task force is going to be dealing sort of a little bit more in the weeds, and not so far in the weeds, but enough to say, let's get the pitch deck ready. We need to have the Venn diagram, Paul. We need to have, the right colors, the right this. And as was said yesterday, which I really thought was such a valid point, multiple people need to be pitched in multiple ways. You need to pitch to your funders, you need to pitch to the JCCs, and we need to make sure that we get all that right. And that group is going to be quickly, and we're going to come to fruition so that in January, the whole board can sort of weigh in. Okay, whoever is going to be here now and whoever's going to watch the many hours of video on this, and there's another meeting for people who weren't here to weigh in on that. And we're going to make sure that in January, everybody is agreed upon our path going forward. And it doesn't mean it won't, you may have to step off to the right, there may be a car coming on the other side of the highway, whatever, we're gonna have to figure it out, but we're gonna be flexible, and we're gonna move forward as an association, as a board, as a team. There is a call on December 11th that will be sort of an update call. I think it's December 11th at noon Eastern. I just looked it up for Jeremy, I think that's right. And if everybody makes sure you have on your calendars. And that will kind of give you an update as to where we are, a little bit of an update of what the task force has been up to. And I hope what you all heard today and yesterday is that we are committed to transparency and to information flow. Both to you guys, to the funders, to everybody. And I hope that is how you walk out of this meeting, is feeling like you were informed and you got the information you needed so that when you make decisions, you're making it from a place of, I know what I'm talking about, as opposed to, well, I think that, I think it's okay, but I don't really know. So if anybody has questions, most people have my cell phone number, or not, you can find it. Most people have David's or Barack's, just ask the question. As Barack mentioned, about 14 or 15 of us have been making phone calls to board chairs. Some are happy, some are not happy, some are angry, some are this, but something, every time you have a conversation, you give a person a chance to be in a relationship with you. And that's the most important thing. So if you have a question, ask it. It gives us a chance to explain. And as I've said to Barack and David, we've been living in this for a while, you guys haven't. You may walk out of the room and say, oh, you know what? There's something I wanted to talk about. Call and ask the question. We need you all to really be on board and really understand so that you can go out and support this plan. And then, so in New York, January 12th and 13th, we will have our board meeting. We will do a much more thorough dive about this. And does anybody have anything else they'd like to add about today, about yesterday, about the process? Rhea.
I know that what we've seen today, the deck was preliminary. Is there some form of that we can get? Because frankly, I'd like to think about it again because it's now gone. It's going to be hard for me to think about. Something it will be easier to read as a trigger to think about and also to talk about. I understand it's not final.
Go ahead. I don't know how to answer that question.
I would just say that we committed to producing an executive summary from our deliberations these couple days for the folks who weren't able to join us, and I think that'll provide a nice vehicle for sharing the services we have.
But I appreciate that you want to keep thinking about it. Phyllis?
I think one of the things that, we watch this and we sit and think about what it means to get all the JCCs up to ambassador level, and I think we need to realize that we're adopting a program that will not be funded by our J's. That even if every JCC and every almost JCC decided to be an ambassador, the dollars don't work out. That the ability for us to make this messaging about what our J's do in the communities with funders that may or may not be in their communities but want to support what's going on there is a really important part of understanding how the numbers work for this. It's not, by getting everyone to the 107 or whatever the middle bracket is, those 107 J's to move up doesn't solve the problem of how we fund all of this. And I think it's the reason I bring it up is because the need to engage in the bigger picture for the rest of time is what kind of like our J's not able to facilitate everything they do with just the operational dollars, the program dollars. We need to remember that this is about building something that's going to be replicable over time for JCCA and not just in this moment of kind of greatest challenge and opportunities.
Yeah, and to piggyback a little bit off what Phyllis, I want to just kind of, set the table so that Scott isn't like beating me up in January or anything like that. So it's been mentioned that we're building the engine while flying the plane and all that stuff. So as we approach as a board, 2026, and I don't want to speak too out of turn, Michael but like, because also in January, we're gonna be approving the budget for 2026. And obviously, a lot of what we talked about today, we have confidence in. A lot of what we talked about is gonna depend on the funding that comes in from various funders. It's gonna depend partially on how successful we are amongst ourselves of raising money. And so just keep in mind, I don't want it to be like, we're probably gonna approach the budget with like what would the budget look like with, the resources we have, and then at the same meeting, it'll be interesting because we will also be talking about this vision of where we're going. But I don't want people, like if the budget doesn't have, because it can't, because we won't have secured all that funding, all of the things that we're talking about on these slides, like it's kind of gonna be a two-pronged look at our business. There will be the budget we will approve going into 2026 that is going to have to deal with the financial realities as they are, which I think are going to be good because we do have the support of the field, because Barack is working hard at evaluating the current business structure, because we have rent that is less than it used to be. I think there are ways that will be able to support much of what we do, but it's going to be this kind of interesting way of a meeting where we're going to be passing a budget based on today's reality with an eye towards what we plan to be implementing throughout that year, if that makes sense or not.
Let me add to that. So as JCCs, we do that all the time.
Right.
All of a sudden, we have a regular budget, and then a big J just comes in and goes, here's $1 million for this. Right. And all of a sudden, we go to our board, now we have $1 million from J, and we're able to put this special needs program on, and we're going to spend $700,000 on staff, $300 on program, and whatever. That happens in the middle of the year. Quite often for a lot of us. So that should be the plan as Barack gets the money in, whatever point that is, all of a sudden, boom, and that next part of the vision goes forward, and we hire people and we move forward.
We get the money in.
What?
We.
Not Barack.
Barack, we celebrate you, Barack. We celebrate you. No, we're on the same page. We get it. Yeah.
But I also know that yes, and none of this happens without this board agreeing to the framework. And the things that Brian said yesterday about providing clarity on, I'm just reading because there were a lot of words, providing clarity on what we will deliver and add to the field, seeing the org chart and the human resources necessary to make that plan to begin to happen, a revenue model to achieve sustainability, thank you, Jay, and a pitch deck for all of the different constituencies that we have. And that's what this board is going to be working on for the next 2 months, and then after that, to make sure that that is what we agree upon, and that is where we go forward from. Anybody else have anything to say? Or is everything clear? Does everybody know what's going to happen over the next couple months and how it's going to work? Okay, my job is done.
Thank you, Lacey. Great recap. Appreciate it. Appreciate all of your engagement and involvement with it and support. It's very, very meaningful. We could continue the journey. This is it's a process. Appreciate the support behind it. So we've done the work that this board's going to do for yesterday, today. Now we're going to go celebrate the JCC movement and through ProCon. But that doesn't start until 1 o'clock. So you're going to be dismissed to go do whatever you would like. We can have conversations when you're around and that whole platform. Is there anything else I need to say in that?
The board has reserved seats in the plenary. Your names are on those chairs, so please find them when you come in at 1 o'clock.
Can I?
In what room?
Carrie, 1 o'clock or 12:45? What time do you want them in the room?
12:45 is great, in the ballroom. Nicolai Ballroom right down the hall.
I just want to extend a personal invitation. JCC Global is leading the leadership delegation to Europe this coming March. You may have received an email or you received, but I see you now face to face. We are going to start in the UK, London and Brighton. March 9 to 13, and then move on to Athens, where 300 plus leaders of Jewish communities from all over Europe will congregate for a conference in Athens. It's a modular program, so if you can do only one out of 3 components, but if you can do all, so if you're interested, we would love to have you with us and represent JCC Association. Thank you.
And if you get us the information, you'll get it out.
Right. Yes.
All right. 1, 2, 3. We are adjourned.